Welcome to the Business Advice Podcast, where we discuss marketing, money, and other matters with businessmen around Australia.
Well, guys, we're very excited today to have Dean with us. And he is a man of many talents and a true expert in the field. So we're very excited. Thank you for your time, Dean.
You're very, very welcome. I'm privileged to be here. I'm really excited to have a conversation with you guys. I mean, we've been speaking for about 5-10 minutes so far. It's been very fruitful. So I think
we're besties already.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for those who don't know Dean, a very, very brief introduction would be that he is an award-winning serial entrepreneur, and he has a specialty, which he'll go into later, but is to help others start businesses in less than a day and to also generate revenue within that day. Very impressive. Sounds like a pipe dream, but I'm sure he's not, because he's here and he has a track record to prove it. So let's get into it, Dean. So you're a serial entrepreneur. Did you know that you were an entrepreneur since childhood?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like my earliest memories of entrepreneurship, and I'm sure a few people have this story, and I think that if they explore it more, I think they'll uncover some pretty cool facts about themselves. But when I was a kid, I remember going to school and taking like a list with a list of movies on it, right, and selling them $5 each. You want the latest Shrek movie, and I used to.
You were Netflix.
Yeah, exactly, right. And like, so kids would pay me like, oh, I want Shrek to, it wasn't even Shrek 2, it was Shrek back then, but Shrek's come out, and I want to watch Shrek. So they'd give me $5. They're basically their lunch money. Feel kind of bad in hindsight taking people's lunch money, but as an ethical bully, I think, but I gave them value in exchange, right? So it's okay.
It was good perceived value.
yeah, that's right. But and I used to, I was making like $20-$30 a week doing that. And there was other times as well. And, at some point I started getting creative, and I was selling fart bombs as well. Everyone wanted these fart bombs. I used to buy a packet of them for like $2 for like 5
Wait,
of them.
did you have to fart in them yourself, or is it like pre-made?
No, like it was like this thing where you hit it, right?
Yeah.
And then after you hit it, you threw it, and then it kind of like, all the chemicals in them kind of combined and then exploded. It was a bit of a pop.
Oh,
and it would
wow.
leave this devastating smell throughout the classroom, and you had to leave the classroom, right? It was a great way to get out of doing something. And so I'd buy a whole pack of 5 of them for $2, and then I'd go to school and sell them for $2 each. But then that landed me in detention for selling them. So I had to get more creative, and I started to think of some other ethical ideas. I even did like, the Scooby bracelets. You remember those bracelets that you could weave, and then you'd make, I don't know if you remember them, but I was making those in like sporting team colors and selling them for 50 cents.
Oh,
because obviously I was cautious about getting in trouble.
No more fart bombs.
Yeah. Didn't want suspension. Detention was bad enough. You know what I mean? Fair. So, yeah. That's essentially.
Do you remember?
Absolutely.
Do you remember how you came up with these ideas? Like, did anyone in your life inspire you, or did you just do it yourself completely?
Look, I've only recently learned over the last probably 7 or 8 years that my dad was actually in business, my biological father. Okay. So my parents divorced, for me at an early age. I was, I think, about 4 or 5 years old. So that was kind of like pre-school, like pre-kindy, primary school. So I wonder if my early ages 0 to 5 kind of had an impact on that. But I don't think that it did, because I didn't even know that he was, a business owner himself until the last sort of 7 or 8 years when I was talking to my mother about it. So I don't think that it had an impact. I think it was just a natural born talent. It was just something that was driven inside of me, that was given to me by God, if that makes sense. And yeah, I've always been like that, man. I've always been like that, just thinking of new ways to make money. You know what I mean? Or strike up a deal with someone. You know, it was trading candy in the playground and convincing someone why they should take mine because I want theirs. You know what I mean? So yeah.
There's hunters, gatherers, and there's borderers. And
yeah, that's right. That's too good, man.
Okay. And so did you study that in uni, or did you go to uni? What happened after high school?
Uni? No. I've got zero tertiary education whatsoever, man.
Love it.
So I started business during high school. So technically speaking, it was earlier than that. But that being said, my first official ABN to send an invoice was at the age of 15. And
wow.
Yeah, I used to jump the fence of high school to go to client meetings, dead set. I'm not even kidding. So like, I actually worked out, it was hilarious. I actually worked out specifically what time my mother would receive an SMS from the school saying that your child is absent. And I would make sure that I got into the school by that time. So if someone came to the classroom with a note saying, "Is Dean here?" I'd basically walk into the class, and then I'd get this note and then walk to the office and say, "Well, I'm here. I don't know why they marked
perfect
me
alibi."
Yeah. You know what I mean? So I had it all figured out. You know what I mean? I was like,
you're
sweet.
like you're the bank robbers who timed the police arrival. And then you got 2 minutes.
That's right. So yeah, man, that was me when I first officially started. And it's actually a funny story how I got my first ABN. I was doing a lot of volunteer work for some, for the local council and a non-profit organization, which I'm now, almost 15 years later, I'm also the vice president of this particular charity. But I was doing a lot of volunteer work around events. So live events, sound production and, live audio engineering and things like that. Some lighting production, some DJing. And a couple of other things we can talk about later. But Fairfield City Council it was actually a gentleman by the name of Peter Hope, and he was the youth officer, the youth programs officer for Fairfield Council. And he said to me, "Dean, whenever you volunteer, you always do a better job at the sound desk than the people that we hire to do it, right?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And he's like, "Look, would you be open to us paying you as a contractor to run the audio desk?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sweet. I'd be happy to." And he goes, "Oh, what would be your hourly rate to do the work?" Now, guys, keep in mind at this point when he asked me that question, I was earning about $9 an hour at McDonald's, right?
Making bank. Yes.
Yeah. And so like in my head, I'm thinking, "Oh, but it's council. Maybe I could charge them 20, blah, blah, blah." But before I even open my mouth, Peter turns around and says, "Oh, we've got a budget for about $50 an hour. Is that okay? Or do you need more?" And I'm sitting open my mouth. I'm like, "Oh, that's like more than double of what I was thinking, like, shit." I'm like, yeah, that's fine, And that was hilarious, right? So I go and I do this amazing job, all right? I do this amazing job. And prior to this, I've done a few DJ gigs, like, for some house parties and stuff like that. It's very small, couple $100 kind of a thing, right? And so what ended up happening was at the end of the event, I went up to him expecting to receive like cash in an envelope or something like that. Keeping in mind, this is the local council, right? It was just funny, man. And
how old are you?
He's like, "Oh, no, you have to send an invoice." And I go, "Oh, okay." He goes, "Yeah, you just send it to my email. I'll talk to you about it next week. We're busy right now, but on Monday, give me a call and we'll talk about it." I'm like, "Okay, cool." And I go home and I, typical Google, what the fuck's an invoice? You know what I mean? Like, shit. And then that was kind of where my journey began. Sent the invoice, and then he came back to me and he's like, "Oh, Dean, I noticed that your invoice doesn't have your ABN. Please include your ABN." And then I was like, yeah, of course. Yeah. I'm so sorry for the oversight. And then I'm back on Google. What's an ABN? How do I get one? You know what I mean? So, and that's where it all started, right? It was such a cool story, such an interesting story of how I learned, right? So I learned in the deep end of things. It's not like I had someone telling me what to do. I
You're
was
learning as you
kind of-
go.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. And that's what it's been like my whole life.
And then how did you go into music production, or what kind of industry did you start with?
From there, 15 to 18, and a little bit beyond 18, but not too far beyond 18. I was continuing to do like DJing and live sound production and things like that. So I did continue doing those things. Funny enough, because of what I was doing with Fairfield Council, I started getting bigger clients. So I got clients like Stockland, right, which is a big property developer, shopping center. And then I was doing all of their shopping centers and doing all of their events and things like that.
Wow,
and then
you went corporate pretty quickly.
Yeah, like I'm 15 still. And then I got, I got clients like New South Wales Health, and I was doing all their Christmas parties and all of their functions. And then I also got Nickelodeon as well. And I'll send you the images if you want to put it in an overlay later. But I did Nickelodeon as well, at that age too, which was awesome. Mind you, I didn't have a license. So I had like people driving me everywhere, right? So,
so you had chauffeurs.
Yeah. I had family friends. I had a very good family friend, Kit, and he had a ute. It was the only person I knew who had a ute. And I said to him, I'll clean your car and make it spotless. I've got photos of that too. I'll clean your car and make it spotless if you can drive me to this gig, right? So that was
nice.
How I was getting around. Yeah. But then I quickly learned, it got to a point when I was turning like around 18, 19 years of age. I actually really quickly learned that business is more about who you know and not what you know or how talented you are. One of the biggest challenges that I faced at that age is I went from a young high achiever to what the hell does this 18-year-old think he knows, right?
Right.
So that was that one. But the biggest problem in all of that wasn't so much my reputation, because I had an amazing one. It happened to be the contacts that I had at each of those places, Nickelodeon, New South Wales Health, et cetera, et cetera. The contact people changed. So the person who I was in contact with and had a relationship with, they moved onto a different role or a different business, and someone else.
A new person didn't know you.
And what happens? That's right, they don't know me. But what happens is when someone actually comes in, they usually come in with their own contacts.
Yeah.
And so that was the end of corporate DJing and music production and things like that. Because, at that age as well, I didn't actually know how to handle that situation where if the contact did change, how to maintain and rebuild that relationship. You know what I mean? Absolutely.
Yeah. Because that's a different skill set. It's not just doing your own thing. It's networking and marketing yourself and branding.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I went from young high achiever, right, to a naive, a naive young high achiever, right, who thought that, the world was given to me at this moment in time on a silver platter, to a very big reality hit. I definitely didn't have the knowledge or the skill set to handle those situations,
Right. So how did you pivot away from that period?
Well, throughout that period, like DJing isn't like a full-time gig. It's heavily weekend driven, so I didn't have much on at the time. And so I was always, exploring outside of that domain. And so when I was 18, I started doing, believe it or not, I don't know if you remember, do you remember the old Facebook where you go to a profile or a page and there was like these square tiles and it had like album and this and that and the rest of it? Do you remember? That was like the first edition of the new Facebook, right before mobile. Yeah, it was right before they brought out the mobile version. And it was actually called Cornelius Design is what I called it. And Cornelius in Latin, I've got screenshots of that too. It means Facebook, believe it or not. And so I started designing the cover photos and everything like that in 2013, barely 18 years of age. I started designing those. And the best part is you could actually put custom apps in those little tiles. And what I observed was that people didn't actually, it was like MSN, right? If you remember that, you never really wanted to go away from MSN. You always wanted MSN open. And it was the same for Facebook. People wanted to communicate with their friends, They didn't want to interact with businesses and be taken away from that dopamine that they were getting. And so I worked out that with these little tiles, you could actually create custom apps to put an iframe of your website inside of Facebook. And then so I was working with local businesses, and essentially, like, if you wanted to make a booking for a table at a restaurant, you could embed that into the Facebook page itself, so that way they didn't actually ever have to leave Facebook to be able to make that booking.
Right.
So, and that was the world
That's
of
genius.
Yeah, and that was where the world of marketing came into the equation for me as an adult. I was always doing it because of the non-profit organization I was involved with in my youth, and doing all the events and stuff like that, with all the graphics design and flyer distribution and getting people to buy tickets to come to our events and stuff like that. But it wasn't a prominent thought. Like, it wasn't, for me, it felt like I was just there to do it. It wasn't an entrepreneurship perspective from that standpoint. It wasn't until very later I started looking back and reflecting and realizing that's where I got a lot of what I learned about entrepreneurship. But yeah, essentially that was the first sort of taste of marketing and getting paid for doing marketing, if that makes sense, you know. And I was very as well. So I was actually really, really good with design work at the time too. So yeah.
So tech and design, was that your direction after that?
Tech and marketing. I mean, design was I had the skill set to do designs myself, but being the entrepreneurial mindset that I have, I was like, fuck, that's way too much work.
Right. Yeah.
So
it's not big picture work.
Yeah. So I always looked at different ways that I could minimize the amount of time and effort that I had to do it. And I found I actually found an online website that had just tons of templates, Photoshop templates, and I was just ripping it from there and redesigning it. So I'd still do some custom stuff, but it was, the baseline was $5 from a template website. You know what I mean?
You were using Canva before everyone else was using
Yeah, pretty much, right? Absolutely, man.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So when did you get stuck into like your first proper, like your own business? Because these are all like side, it sounds like they're pretty minimal effort, minimal time investments. When did you land your first like major gig?
Yeah. So as the years went on and I was just doing a little bit of social media and a bit of this and a bit of that, that's when I started, was called at the time Rocket International, Rocket INT Pty Ltd. And it was a marketing agency, and we're doing websites, we're doing this, we're doing that. And it was because I just, at the time, finances were really, really tight. And around that time as well, 19, 20 years of age, I was also, my now ex-partner, my ex-fiance, was pregnant with my eldest daughter, right?
Right.
I wouldn't say that it was kind of planned, but I don't think we probably should have. I don't think we had the right foundation set up to have a child, but I wasn't going to back out of that regardless.
Right.
And family's my number one value as well, so I'd never give that up.
Yeah.
And I don't regret it whatsoever. But because of everything that was happening, I was like, shit, like I really need to, do something about this. And I did get a job at JB Hi-Fi for a period of time, and I was doing really, really well there until I was forced out because I was making more sales as a casual doing 12 hours than the full-timers were doing in 40. So the full-timers all ganged up against me, and I ended up saying, fuck this, I'm out. So I had the job security and I had the commissions as well from working at JB, but it wasn't a good culture fit because people didn't like that I was exceeding them in their roles.
Yeah.
And so I was basically back on the street, not literally as in homeless, but in terms of the job market and what I'm doing with myself. And I realized, I'm like, oh my God, I really need to solve this problem because we've got rent to pay. We've moved out. She's pregnant. She's going to give birth in however many months' time, and et cetera, and so on. I really need to get this under control and get it sorted. And that's where, from there, I started doing a lot more marketing stuff. Learned how to build websites, and again, just using theme templates that you could get online, and stuff
Right.
like that. I worked out how to host a website by breaking things constantly and then reverse engineering what I broke. So all of my tech experience has been from breaking things. So, but yeah, that's kind of like the first. It was Rocket International. We're doing websites and a whole bunch of other stuff.
Right.
You know, Facebook ads. I was actually one of the first advertisers on Facebook as well in 2013.
Oh, wow.
So this was like kind of beta release advertising platform, if that makes sense. So
Those were the
yeah,
good times, weren't they?
yeah, man, it was so good. And leads were cheap, you know.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
my God, they were
exactly.
cheap. Yeah.
You mentioned learning by breaking things. How did you face breakage or like maybe failures or setbacks? Like how does your brain register those?
You know what, man? It's like this feeling of invincibility. I think throughout my
Really?
entire life,
Okay.
right? My entire life, I kid you not. Even when I've done things right, someone out there has told me that I'm wrong. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
You think like even high school, I had teachers that were all conspiring to try and get me suspended, you know, for doing good things. We had, you know, laptops. You know, I remember when the government handed out laptops to everyone in school, and there was actually a warranty issue with them. And all you had to do was pull off this cheap, you know, 2-cent plastic cover, and then unscrew the screen and plug it back in again. That's it. That's all you had to do.
Right.
I was doing stuff like that and saving over actually in total, I've saved students over $15,000 in fees because the school wanted to force them to pay $300 each just to look at the computer and see and find out what's wrong with it. And if it was a warranty issue, you wouldn't get your $300 back.
Wow.
I don't even think those laptops were worth $300. So, you know, even then, and so the school, all these teachers tried to get me suspended for doing a good thing. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So my entire life, it has been, even when I'm succeeding, people have been telling me I'm failing.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of grew numb to it. I don't know if you guys have done karate. You hit that bag and it hurts. Like it hurts.
It's supposed to hurt, right?
Yeah. But then, you know, half an hour of kicking it and kicking it and kicking it and kicking it, and you just don't feel it anymore. You know what I mean? So now failure to me doesn't even feel like failure. It feels like progress because I just keep
That's amazing.
Kicking it. You know what I mean? You just gotta keep kicking the bag.
Yeah. So it feels like progress. Is it kind of like a road sign of like, hey, this is the right direction? Or hey, this is the right feeling. It means I gotta just keep going in this direction.
Look, there's two parts to it. One is you know, the mentality side of, you know, of progress. It's the structure of progress. You're required to fail to progress, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You know, and you're required to fail over and over and over and over and over again to progress, right?
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes, like, you know, you look at it, a lot of businesses that come out, like big ones, look at Amazon, right? Even Jeff Bezos said this himself, is they tried things and then they took it to market, they gave it their all, they gave it their best shot, and then they improved it later, right? That's not a failure, that's progress, right? Yes, they failed in certain aspects, but they improved it as they went.
Right.
And
it's
so
iterations.
Yeah. And so I believe in that.
Yeah.
But then the other side is when, you know, you're up against your own mind. It's the emotional side of things. It's the psychological side of things where the biggest thing that's in your way is you, and the person bringing you down is you. And you know, I even in the last however many years, I've had to fight those battles with my own mind many times. And the way that I look at it, and the way that I always find, I suppose, the strength and the courage to keep persevering and to find that resilience, is that every single time that I've been backed up into a corner, hands like a whole this is where the Houdini thing comes from, right? Hands tied behind my back, backed into a corner, nowhere to escape. I have tried, you know, in very dire circumstances and extreme adversities, I've tried every single way to get out of that corner. And somehow, because I never give up, I always find a crack in the wall. I always find a place to exit. I always find a place because I just keep trying. This didn't work. This didn't work. This didn't work. This didn't work. You know what I mean? And even from business, like, oh, you know, we went from, for example, you know, $50,000 a month. And mind you, the business had only started 6 months earlier. We went from $50,000 a month to, you know, 6 months later, you know, doing $5,000 a month. You know, and my overheads were 35 because I employed all this staff.
Right.
You know, and then you try something, and I'll tell you what we did, and this was, you know, a while back, but we tried something, and I thought, okay, we're not making our regular money from our pipeline, and our pipeline has disappeared. Let's go find a new pipeline. Let's go try other things to make it work.
Right.
And then we went and tried all these other different things, and then out of that exercise, we were lucky to make $2,000 out of a whole month of effort. Right. Wow. And so, but then, like, you can't just give up there. A lot of people would go, oh, fuck, it's too hard. We can't figure it out. But I kept trying. Let's go back to basics. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's try this. Let's try that. So it's consistently finding different methods and ways to attack the problem and get out of that corner. You know what I mean? Even if Mike Tyson's the one beating you into that corner, find a weakness, like find something that you can exploit to get out of it. You know what I mean? Right. Yeah, and that's the psychological battle. Absolutely.
Yeah. What has helped you to get through those periods? Because, you know, as you fight the battle, it takes time. It drains your resources, mental and external. Like, what has gotten you through?
Touchy subject, because it's family. It's family. You know, family's always been the number one thing for me that makes the difference.
Right.
In any time that I've been in those situations, I always think of my daughters. I mean, just before we started this, I mean, you guys saw my daughter come up to me, give me a hug and a kiss, and, you know, didn't want to let me go. And I have a very, very close relationship with my children. Very close. You know, I have a close relationship with my mother, for example, and my siblings as well. And so for me, family's important. Now, I know not everyone's number one value is going to be family, but I always say to everyone, you know, it's actually really good to sit down and journal. And I know a lot of men don't do this as well, by the way, but to sit down and journal and understand what you value most in life. And then when it comes to those situations, it's always remembering what those values are. And it's looking to those values to find a way. For me, it's, for example, my kids. You know, I have to keep a roof over their head. And life hasn't been easy the last 2-3 years, because I've gone through a divorce, and then subsequently a year later, I had a stroke. So, you know, it's been hard. But but in every single one of those times and moments of dire straits and you know, adversity stacked up in every corner, I've always thought about my kids. You know, and I've always thought about, okay, I need to keep a roof over my head and keep a roof over theirs. I need food on the table.
You just got to make it work. Yeah,
exactly. And, you know, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like my whole life, you know, business has been great. And I think I've revealed that it's hard. And, you know, in the past, I've been evicted from my home for non-payment of rent. It's happened. You know what I mean? And I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, well, I need to figure out how to get a new property to move into and everything else. And I've had sheriffs knock on my door and say, well, you need to get out. And, you know, I've learned through necessity that I need to come up with different ways to make it work and make it happen. Even if it's extending it out a little bit or pushing it out a little bit. And I'll give you an example in that situation with the eviction is I sat there and thought of every idea possible of how I went to the real estate agent. Listen, I need another week, just 1 week. The move-in date, we've got a new property. The move-in date's 1 week. Nah, if you don't get out by this date, we're calling the sheriff, blah, 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 blah. The whole caboodle, right? And dealing with a lot of unreasonable people as well with basically no heart, the way that I feel about it. But what did I do? I'm like, okay, they can't kick me out if I go and take them to the tribunal for any reason.
Right.
Let me find a reason, right? And so then I just, you know what I did? I disputed the overdue amount. And so, because in the application, you don't have to provide evidence. You just have to say that you dispute it.
Right.
So you know what that did for me? The sheriff knocked on the door and I showed them a piece of paper. I said, no, there's a court case. You can't do anything about it. Please leave. Right? The agent, well, you can't do this, blah, blah, blah. I'm saying, yes, I can. I'm disputing it. And then I bought myself 4 weeks because it's 4 weeks before an NCAT hearing. Right?
Wow, that's a significant amount of time.
Yeah. So I wasn't under as much pressure anymore because I knew I had time. And so then when it got to, so I sorted myself out, got into a new property, all the rest of it. And the icing on the cake, you're going to love this because I went to NCAT. The day of the NCAT hearing, I said, tribunal member, do apologize. Since lodging my application, I've reviewed all of our documents and cross-referenced it with the ledger. And the agent is in fact correct. You know, we do owe the money. I didn't have to argue it. I just said I withdraw my application 4 weeks later. You know what I mean? But I had to think of things, you know. I had to think of ways to just make it work. You know what I mean?
Survival.
Yeah, absolutely. It's survival. Definitely. I feel like I've been in survival mode my whole life.
Yeah. But I love that. It's exactly what I tell my clients as well. Is that the values are your compass. Like in every small decision, it's a case by case. Life will throw everything at you, but like if you change all the time, you're not true to who you are, and you don't have that sort of strength and integrity. But like for you, it's like whether it's business or living arrangement or whatever, it's always like family. That's North Star. You know what you need to do, right? What has been your biggest challenge in entrepreneurship? Getting nitty gritty.
Yeah, cash flow. I'm a creative, right? I'm not a numbers guy. I delegate everything. I you know, believe it or not, as much as I'm good at doing the work, I fucking hate it. I'm the visionary, the creative, the
strategist,
the leader, the strategist. You know, the creation of workplace culture, the leader, the educator, the coach. You know what I mean? To the rest of the team, that's kind of, you know, my sweet spot. And I encourage anyone listening to this to sit down and work out whether or not you're a taskmaster and you like the nitty gritty, or if you are one of those creatives, or if you're a hustler and just get things done quickly, or, you know, because in any business, you need a combination of all of them, right? So I hire people that are very different to me. I hire taskmasters and et cetera and so on, because I hate tasks. I hate writing long-winded documents, SOPs. I don't want to know about it. I've never had a business plan. You know what I mean? Not me. That's not my thing. But cash flow is a challenge. I'm good with numbers. You know, I can work them out and figure out and optimize and things like that. I can't say I've always been good with them. It's definitely an acquired, acquired learning. But cash flow has always been the biggest challenge. And I'm very heavily, and this is probably one of my weaknesses, I'm very heavily dependent on my financial advisors. So, you know, accountants and advisors and things like that. Very heavily dependent on them to help me with cash flow. I still manage a lot of business budgets and payments and things like that. Not too many, but I do manage a fair few. But ultimately, realizing that that's my weakness, I've decided, and this is something I decided a long time ago, just to completely hand that off to someone who can budget better than I can, who can do cash flow better than I can, because it's a lot better waking up on a Monday morning and having that advisor, that financial advisor, turn around to me and say, Dean, to make budget this month, you need an extra $14,000.
Right.
And then I go, okay, sweet.
You're good at that. You're good
Let
at
me pick up the
that
phone.
money.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Shit. You know what I mean? And go find it, right? That's
Yeah.
been extremely valuable, but that's also been my biggest challenge. Even with the advice, sometimes, different things are happening around the world and it's outside of your control and you don't meet your budget.
Yeah.
And then you have to make hard decisions about what's next and what you spend the money on next. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
right.
And what do you? And again, it's about just pushing it out, calling the people that you owe money to, right? Your the people that you owe money, the debts that you owe to people, and say, even staff, and be like, hey, can I pay you half, and I could pay the other half in a few weeks. You have to negotiate. And so I've learned that quite, it's a very normal part of business that a lot of people don't realize. They think that, it's a bad thing and that they're doing terrible, when it's actually a completely normal part of business is, stretching cash flow as much as you can. If you can get another 30 days from a supplier, then great, because I've got another 30 days to think about it. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So cereal, we talked about the entrepreneur part. How about the cereal part? Like, why cereal for you? Is it that part of the business is the most exciting, or are you the best at it? What drives you there?
Well, I think having cereal in the morning is the most
it's
important.
It's great with milk.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Dad jokes just beaming out here. I'm allowed. I have 2 kids.
I don't even have kids, but I love it.
You walked yourself into that one, David. But look, the cereal part is, I just love business. I had a mate of mine ring me up, said, dude, I want to start a marketing agency in the automotive industry. I'm like, dude, that's awesome. What do you need? Like, can I help you? Like, what do you need for me to do? And I actually even said to him, like, dude, what the fuck do you know about marketing? Right?
That was the end of the conversation.
But then he turned around to me and he goes, I don't. He goes, but the thing is, like, can we work together? And you can use your team and white label it to me. I just want to go out and sell. I'm like,
right.
So you want to do a 50-50 partnership? I'll get my team, which I'll invoice the company for, to do the work, which is effectively like employing people anyway. And then we'll split profits. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, sure, we do it. Sweet. Absolutely. Let's go. And then, within a day, same thing. It's the starting a business in a day thing. Within a day, website's up, looks amazing, sounds amazing, because it's the automotive industry. If you click get started, it sounds, there's a Ferrari engine starting that plays.
Oh,
remember,
wow.
people don't put sound effects in websites anymore, but I found it work. So there was, all of that was up and running, and company registered as well in that same day. Like, everything was done. And literally by the end of the day, even the bank accounts were set up, and he went out and started selling. And so, so there's other people coming to me with ideas, and then there's ideas that I come up with, or businesses that I come up with, where I identify gaps in the market. And then either I start it myself and get it up and running, and then look to employ people to take over. Or, I find partners who are interested in that aspect of things. And so that way they can go out and do it, if that makes sense.
Right.
So, essentially. And then with the support of my team, right? Because I'm building out an empire of people in different facets. So that way to start a business, or to be able to do anything in any domain, okay, let's say I wanted to start an accounting firm, whatever. But say I wanted to start an accounting firm. If I wanted to start an accounting firm, I could. We've got a marketing company that could do this. We've got a phone business, a business telco that can do all the landlines for it. And we've got an IT business that can do this. So it's
like a suite of services.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I'm building it out where we can just kind of keep it all under one roof. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. It's like a production house for startups.
Yeah. Start to finish. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So, but that's where cereal comes into the equation. It's you know, I'm very, very interested in owning like 100 companies, you know what I mean? So,
yeah.
even if it's 5%, like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't care.
Yeah, it
Absolutely.
definitely reminds me of Hermosi's business model, where he does give all this great advice, but then he wants the businesses to succeed so that he can become a part of it too.
Yeah, that's right.
All
That's
right.
right. There's a lot of people that adopt. Even Sir Richard Branson owns like something like 126 companies. You know what I mean? I'm the same. You know, I'm the same. Like, if there's a way, even like, so marketing, right? You could put video into the marketing agency, right? But I decided to separate it. So I've got Vivo Digital and I've got Big Films, right?
Right.
They could come under the same house, but you know, I've specifically decided to separate them. It's an extra company under my belt. It operates independently. If one day someone comes around and says, "Oh, hi, really interested in buying your business," or maybe I feel like selling one of those businesses, instead of it all being just one company, I can sell just that arm and keep this one over here, right? So I keep this one and sell that one. That one sells for $500,000. Beautiful. Okay, I've got 500 grand cash and I've still got my agency. You know what I mean?
You just start another one.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. So you get the idea of the serial entrepreneur side of things. You know, definitely not Nutri-Grain, but you know, but more about wanting to start businesses. Absolutely.
So you've met a lot of people who are very keen, have big dreams to start their own thing. What's a common theme in all these startup founders that you've worked with?
Common theme is, I'd say it's a couple of things, but it'd be, you know, analysis paralysis would be one very common theme, right? People think that they have to make it perfect, or, you know, or they have to really think about it. It's like the business plan thing, right? I don't do business plans. And it's like the business plan is, you know, they'll spend like half a decade on a business plan before they start, right? They have to get it right. I have to get it right. You know, like I can't start unless I get it right. You know what I mean? So that's that one. And then the second one is a lot of limiting self-beliefs. So I put fear. Fear is in that category. So fear comes into that equation of the limiting self-beliefs as well, because they're scared or they don't think that they can make the jump. And, you know, I want to give you guys a story about that. You know, for a period of time after the marketing, after I started doing the marketing stuff, I had to work at a car dealership for a little while as a marketing manager for about 6 months. I don't think that was actually probably the longest job I ever had, was 6 months. Most other jobs I didn't last more than a few weeks throughout my lifetime. I couldn't do it. But so in that, I think why I stayed so long was because I was just fully autonomous on what I wanted to do with the business from a marketing standpoint. But you know, the day that I left, it's because I went and I'm like, nah, I'm sick of this shit now. I'm going to go out and I'm going to really take this seriously in terms of the marketing agency. And the day that I was supposed to leave, the day I left, I'd give them notice. I finished on the Thursday, came Friday, and I said, I'm coming in on Friday to pick up my pay, because they were paying in cash envelopes, right? And so coming in on the Friday to pick up my pay, I wasn't supposed to be working, and I had a whole bunch of meetings planned to start making more money, right? And that morning, my employer at the time said to me, if you leave, he goes, you can pick up your pay at the end of the day. And if you leave, then I'm not giving you your pay. This was about 3 weeks worth of wages, and I think about close to $3,500, if I recall correctly, in commissions. Wow. There's easily $6,000 in an envelope that I'm supposed to get. And the answer was, you're not getting paid to be here today, but I'm just to make a point to you, you're going to stay until the end of the day.
Oh, wow.
To pick up your pay. Right?
That's a dog move.
And I said, you know, I'm sat there and I went, you know what? Fuck you. And I left. I was like, it was the choice between $6,000 and the meeting that I had was for a $3,000 project. Right. And I'm like, do I wait for $6,000 or do I go and go to this meeting, right? Because I've been chasing a meeting with these guys for so long. Do I go to a meeting and make $3,000 and just work out the rest? Because you know what, fuck this guy, right?
Right.
And it got to a point where, you know, I was like, nah, that's it, I'm leaving. And you know, I was there for maybe an hour and a half.
Right.
And I left and I went to the meeting. In the meeting, all I could think to myself was, I need to get more money out of him. Right? I just let go of $6,000, right?
That's a great sales pitch in your head.
I'm like, I just let go of $6,000. I need to get that money back. You know?
Yeah.
This is what gamblers do with the poker machines.
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah,
$100, $200, and then they put in more money there. I need to get my $100 back, right? I had that same mentality in my head with going into this meeting. And I didn't want to make it obvious, right? It was so hard because people can tell when you're desperate.
Yes.
You know what I mean? My composure was just brilliant. I'll tell you, I went in there and I upsold them on extras for an extra $2,000 and included business cards because for them it was a website and it was this and it was all these things. And I upsold them on some extra business cards to get printed. So a new design. I'm like, oh yeah, the design's $500, right? And then for each additional staff member after that, it's an extra $50. Blah blah blah. I'm 20 years old, by the way, at this point. And so I squeezed an extra couple of grand out of them, but not 6.5. So I got like an extra $2,000 out of them, right? And then I finished the meeting. I've got the whole afternoon. I've got 1 o'clock till 5 o'clock to figure out how I'm going to get this money. And I go, you know what? I'm going to go knock on. I'm in the middle of Liverpool, right? New South Wales, Liverpool, CBD. I'm going to go knock on everyone's door. I went door to door. And I kid you not, there was not a single commercial property that I did not knock the door on. I was even like, there were lifts where you needed an access pass, and I waited at the lift and told people, I've got a meeting upstairs. Could you buzz me up?
Wow.
Right? And I was literally no stone unturned. I went through every single door of a commercial building in Liverpool, and I said, do you guys need business cards? I'm actually, I've just taken a whole bunch of orders from some of your neighbors. And all of those orders that I've taken from your neighbors, if I can get higher volumes, I can actually get the price down.
Yeah.
So if I can get a commitment from you today, it'll be $90. Instead of paying $120, it actually costs me like $50. But I'm like, if you pay $90 today per run of 500, then, we can all work together to bring the price down, etc. Right. I walked away, from all of that, every single building. I walked away on top of the around $4,500-5,000 that I got from the first meeting of the day.
Yeah.
I walked away with an extra $5,500 in business card orders, and it's not all profit, but I was making about $40 on each. So let's just call it 50%.
Yeah.
So, it was an extra. I made extra couple of grand to you know what I mean? Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah. And a whole bunch of new business relationships with people that I could see. Yeah. Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. But so that's the story of, in terms of, actually, what was the main topic that we were talking about before I went on to that
biggest
story?
Challenge.
The biggest challenge, was it cash flow?
Yeah.
Or did we move on to that? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Go. I was like,
so what do you think that teaches? Oh no, actually the topic was the common theme in startups.
Making the jump. That's right.
Yes, making the jump. Yeah. It was that fear.
That's the lesson here, guys. I let go of $6,000. Some of you are afraid of letting go of $1,000 paycheck. You know what I mean? I let go of $6,000 at the age of 20, with a kid. You know what I mean? I had a child,
So cool.
Man, that courage.
Yeah, that's a lesson for you. Absolutely.
So what would be your defining trait? Would you say it's tenacity? Would you say it's fearlessness? Or what do you think sets you apart?
You're asking all these questions I haven't even answered for myself.
That's what you get when you're a psychologist.
I haven't journaled that far, David.
If you work with me, you would have.
I love that. I love that. I'm gonna have to sign a deed of consultancy after this call. Apparently,
Easy.
love it, man. Look, I love the challenging questions. I think resilience and perseverance. Tenacity.
Yeah, I hear it.
I feel like tenacity is like a natural part of who I am. But I think that where a lot of the learning has taken place, and shaping me to who I am as an individual, it is the perseverance and resilience. It is number one. Perseverance and resilience for me is probably what describes me, because I've been, like I said, I've been backed up into a corner my whole life. I've been in survival mode. And I've had to persevere, and I've had to be resilient in all areas. And the domino effect of that is other characteristics that have come on board as a result is things like empathy.
Okay. Oh, okay.
When things go wrong, I used to freak out a lot. Especially when it came to staff, right? Like I'd really put a lot of heat on staff at some point. Because they did something wrong or incorrectly, or they didn't, whatever it might be. So I used to put a lot of heat on staff. And then I slowly learned, because of obviously through reflecting and journaling and all the rest of it, and identity finding and soul seeking, I found that like a new level of empathy, because I had been through so much that, what's this little mistake compared to a whole life of adversity? What's
true.
that in the grand scheme of things? It's actually not that bad.
Right.
And so that's actually helped me to be able to build really good workplace culture with staff and things like that as well. Because, I'm more, it can be frustrating sometimes when something is repeatedly done wrong.
For sure.
But then you have to ask yourself, what are you doing to teach them?
Right.
And I have these same principles for my daughters as well. I've got this thing in my lap, right? It's like these heat packs.
What's that? Oh.
yeah. It's freezing, right? So I've been holding it this whole time, keeping myself warm. But my daughter yesterday, she put the her little heat pack in the microwave. I'm in the office, and I'm like, it's been a while. And I went over to the microwave, and I seen the timer was set for 90 minutes.
She's making a nuclear bomb.
She's 5, right? She's 5. I gave her that. She's 5, And so I go, and I'm like, Miller, I'm like, what are you doing, sweetheart? She's like, I'm warming it up. How could you get mad at something so innocent? And I treat staff the same way. But I said to her, I said, okay, sweetheart, I said, look, you can cause a fire by doing that. And I said to her, when you're warming up your little, what is it, wheat? Yeah, I think it's wheat in there. But your little heater bag, you press the start button twice and make sure it has the number 1 at the top. When you see the number 1 and the 2 zeros, then it's okay. All right. Otherwise, if it didn't work, then you press the red button and start again. And I showed her, and then she went and did it herself. Bang, she's learned. And you know what? Last night, normally I go and do it. She asked me last night, can I go warm up my little, heat warmer thing? And I said, yeah, of course you can. And I observed from a distance, and, she did exactly as she was educated to do.
Nice.
Most people freak out, and it's whether it's with children or whether it's in business with their staff or subcontractors and things like that. Even subcontractors, I'm teaching them about their own trade. I'm educating. I'm paying them. Yeah. They're supposed to know what to do, but I'm teaching them. I'm teaching them because it's it benefits everyone. So empathy is that really big part is like I said, like when I look at all of these little things that go wrong, I often compare them to a life of adversity and say, what's this tiny little problem in the grand scheme?
True. That's really good. That's really good. You've met so many leaders and founders at such different levels of success, right? From startup to scale up to probably established executives. Just like
billionaires.
Me. And so, exactly. And so how does that impact your leadership style? because you manage so many businesses now, and you help so many, that your style of leadership should be a conglomeration of all the successes and failures of other people, right?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, look for advice every now and again. I'll give you that. I do seek advice from others, but I do still only take on that advice and apply it to my own circumstances.
Right. Absolutely.
And being around those people, oftentimes I kind of disagree with a lot of what they're doing.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, like you look at the culture. They say, I know a guy is worth about 350 million, and he's a finance aggregator or
right,
something along those lines. Fuck, I don't even know. It's something complicated in the big corporate world, right?
Numbers and
yeah. Numbers,
yeah.
Absolutely. So, but and like I've witnessed how he treats staff, for example.
Right.
And I'm like, not for me.
Right.
Like even when I was working at McDonald's, I was treated so poorly.
Right.
They teach you in hospitality, like if you're walking behind someone with a heavy box, to communicate and tell people. I used to say that, like if my store manager was at a table and I was walking behind them with a box, I'd say behind with a box.
Yeah.
And I used to get like absolute disgusting attitude from them and just be like, do you think I'm stupid? I can see you there. It's like, I don't care if you can fucking see me there. I'm telling you that I'm there in case you didn't. You know what I mean? Like, and this is what the policy says.
Yeah. Oh man, they would not survive in the bear. Not even half an episode.
No, definitely not. But and that's what I look at that, and I just look at my experience as an employee, and I say to myself, like, I would never do that.
Right.
I never want to be that person. Like even my own staff now, there's this one workplace rule that I have, and that workplace rule is not to let anyone down. Right.
Okay.
And and I'll elaborate on that. And this is the same way that I describe it to them, is I say, if it's the middle of summer, because you get a lot of younger guys and girls that work for us too. And then they're 18, 19, 20, 21, 22.
Right.
And I literally say to them, if your friends ring you up and say, hey, chuck a sickie and let's go to the beach.
Right.
I don't mind if you want to go to the beach. Go to the beach. I really don't mind. But what I need you to do is finish whatever it is that needs to be done today. So if you know that there is a deadline for this particular task or project, or, someone's relying on you for this, even when you go to the beach, if someone calls you and says, hey, what's the password for this? You answer your phone. You can still enjoy your time at the beach and have a great day. And then if you want to put in the extra hours afterwards, between 7 o'clock and 10 o'clock, then go for it. Right. But that's kind of like my attitude towards them. And that's because, why not have some of those freedoms? But what that did was it actually created a workplace culture that encouraged people to really, have a high level of accountability, not only to themselves, but to the people around them.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's an amazing effect that it has on absolutely everyone. It's actually quite remarkable what it does. And so, I think ultimately, when it comes to what I'm learning from other business owners and entrepreneurs at all different levels, it's hard to say that I want to or are following in anyone's footsteps. I'm definitely taking pointers in certain areas that I'm not familiar with.
Right, but you're carving your own path, right?
Yeah, exactly right. I am definitely in my own lane when it comes to how I envision what the future looks like for not just me, but everyone around me and everyone that works for me. You know what I mean?
Right. That's great. Okay, absolutely. So we're getting to near the end of the episode. I know we could go on and on, but I'll try to contain us. We always end with one piece of advice for anyone who wants to get started in your industry? I know you've got a few industries, so you can choose whichever one you want to give advice on. But it was a young guy, one of our group members. What is the best piece of advice?
It's a good one. It's a good one. Piece of advice. I'm going to give it in two parts, right? The first and foremost thing I'm going to say is fuck it. We have this this term in my language, in Macedonian, Serbian, etc.
Right.
It's jebiga, right? Jebiga means
Jebiga.
fuck it, right?
Nice.
Look at you swearing, David, in Serbian, mate. I love that. But it definitely is something that I kind of live by. Really, is fuck it. You know, it's kind of like the Nike "just do it." You know what I mean?
Oh, right. Yeah.
If we want to do it like in a sense of maybe something a little bit more child friendly, but more PG than the swearing I've been saying throughout this entire podcast. It is a just do it mentality. You miss every shot. Like, this is a Michael. I'm repeating Michael Jordan here, but you miss every shot you don't take. So just do it, right? And give it a go, give it a try. Like, if you quit your job today and then try something for a month, and then you really feel the heat, and for whatever reason you can't keep going, well, you know what? I'm going to do it actually right now. Here we go here, and rather than using the internet, I'm going to use ChatGPT. How many jobs are available in Australia right now? Here we go. Current job vacancies as of July 2024. There's approximately 352,600 jobs in Australia right now. Okay, there's 352,000 advertised jobs in Australia. Okay, what does that mean? That means that if it doesn't work out, you try it for a month, you just do it, you fuck it, I'm doing it. Right. There is 352,000 other opportunities for you to look at.
Right.
If that's what you need to do, right? Not want to do, need to do.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've been there. I've taken up employment because I need to. I get it. Yeah. I totally get it. The car dealership, JB Hi-Fi, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, you've been through it. Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. Totally get it. Right. And so, that's the first piece of advice that I have in that respect. The second piece, the second piece of advice. I'm just trying to think of how to frame it, right? It's a piece of advice to someone, young or old. I don't think it really matters. What age that they fit it into. Take calculated risks. Someone actually asked me recently. It was quite interesting. It was very interesting, actually, that the end of our conversation, they asked me, what is a childhood memory of yours that is a lesson that can be given in your life today?
Okay.
And I remember when I was about 3 years old, 2 years old, I was 2, 3 years old. I actually remember this. And I asked my mum about this too. And she's like, oh my God, you remember that? So I don't know how I remember from when I was a 2-year-old, but I remember there was a staircase. Right. And it was high and it was long. There was no curves or anything. It was just straight. And I think there was 27 steps, if I recall correctly. Right? Yeah, photographic memory. I love it. Yeah. And the 27 steps, when I was a kid, I walked down those steps really carefully. It was really high risk, right? Right up there. If I fell off, I would have died, Right. And I'd be holding the bars, right? And walking down, holding the bars, until I got to about the second or third step. And when I got to the second or third step, I took a calculated risk and jumped, right? Because there's only 2 or 3 steps to go before I hit the bottom, right? So my advice to people is, while I'm also saying, fuck it, just do it, right? my risk appetite is massive. I'd jump from the 27th step now.
Right.
But for a lot of other people, get to a point where it's uncomfortable to jump, but you're going to be okay.
Yes. Yeah, that's good.
Do you know what I mean? Because don't jump where it's comfortable, because you won't achieve anything. But get just to the point where it's just a little uncomfortable and you're like, oh my God, I don't know how I feel about this. You know what? You might sprain your ankle.
Right.
And then the infamous saying, but did you die?
But did you die?
Right? So, right?
That's
you didn't? Okay. You know what I mean?
That's like the part 2B, but did you die?
Yeah, that's right. Adam's going to have a really great time putting clips together for this. But that's it. Just calculated risks. Take calculated risks,
Absolutely.
And as cliche as it sounds, just don't give up. Even if a short period of time you have, like for me, I had to get a job, but I got back to it. I fixed the problem in the interim, and then I had an outlook to keep going on with the entrepreneurial journey. So, and that's definitely my advice to anyone that's watching. It doesn't matter how old you are. I've actually got clients. I've got some of the clients I work with are 18, 19, 20, and I've actually got a good handful of clients that are over the age of 60, where I'm telling them these exact same things.
Love that. Yeah. So applicable across the lifespan. That's wonderful.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Mate, thank you so much, Dean. Man, that's all gold. I'm sure Adam has to bleep out so many expletives, but that's okay. That's part of fun. But yeah, I hope the readers. I'm sure. Oh, there we go. I'm sure the listeners all got so much from it, and I'm sure this won't be our last conversation. But thank you so much today for your time, Dean.
You're very welcome.
Please keep us posted on any of your new exciting ventures. I'm sure there's so many of us who are keen to get in on the action at some point. There's a lot of members here. And so, all the best with everything. Catch you next time.
I appreciate that, guys. And I appreciate being able to have a platform to share my story. This is actually the first podcast interview I've done where I talk a little bit more about my own personal story and journey. This is a very special interview for me because, oftentimes, I think the last time I was invited on someone else's podcast, it wasn't so much about the story. It was kind of about my success at the time.
Right.
And so this one's a really special one for me because of that fact. And it really is. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversations, and I think there's going to be a couple more potentially over a whiskey and a cigar in
100%.
I've done a podcast, in the backyard fire pit going whiskey and cigars was the best.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But guys, look, if you want to, I'll just share with everyone as well. I mean, if you do want to find me online, if you want to be able to connect with me or reach out to me or see what I'm up to, you can actually head on over to whodean.com. That's WHO, like who, Dean, right? whodean.com. That's got all of my links there, my bio, what I'm doing, a full list of all the businesses that I own and invest in, as well as all of the social links and ways to get in touch as well.
Perfect. We can also add the link to the wherever this is posted. Yeah. Excellent.
Absolutely.
All right. Have a good one. Thank you again, Dean.
Not a problem at all. Thanks,
Thanks
guys.
for listening to the Business Advice Podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode.
Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.